on, Psycho Shooter, Drake Younger, greatest of all time, king of the death matches. So, hey, I want you to make sure that you check me out Friday, October the 11th, X Brand Wrestling at the H2O Wrestling Center in Williamstown, New Jersey. Psycho Shooter, Drake Younger versus Matt Tremont. And I want to tell you right now, you are listening to Jon the Ninja.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you doing? It's Jon the Ninja live in the dojo, aka the dojo. You know it's the Jon the Ninja Studios. C. I will go back to A and B. I've been doing stuff in A and B. It's just been so busy. But I am excited because you know when life comes full circle and a lot of funny things happen. You find out people do the same things you like. People are a part of the same group. It's all love. And this particular individual is I would call a core moment in my life. So let's travel back to 2014. My friend, you know him. I can't mention his name because, you know, he's got a family. He's trying to stay safe, you know, because I'm the troublemaker, but breaking character. A very good friend of mine took me to Voorhees, New Jersey to a CZW event. The first time I got to go live, and he took me to probably the best one I could have gone to, Best of the Best 13. I saw some of the greatest individuals at that time perform, and this man was not only there, but he also won that event. I was captivated by not just his match with AR Fox, but the precision and speed and fun. It was a moment in time. He himself, a wrestling fan, was born in '84 and grew up during the Hulkamania era, and he would go around in Indiana to Roberts Stadium and Market Square seeing shows, but it was WrestleMania 8 that would solidify his future profession. He saw Bret the Hitman Hart, Roddy Piper, they would go at it, and there was something that we call in the wrestling industry color, a little bit of blood, but it added to the seriousness of the match. Of course, he was able to go to IWS Mid-South and see deathmatch wrestling live instead of seeing it on VHS. And for those who aren't aware of deathmatch wrestling, think gladiator work for professional wrestling. Light tubes, barbed wire, fire, you name it, you think about it. And this man was an actual innovator of that. But let's pull back a little bit. In 2002, he started professional wrestling training because deathmatch wrestling is so, I would say, peculiar. You have to know what you're doing as a professional wrestler before you're given the privilege to add weaponry. But as fate would have it, it wasn't that long of a wait. In 2006, he did King of the Death match, his first match, which is crazy, a barefoot thumbtack match. And then the next day, contacted for Tournament of the Death, CZW. And from there, his legend would continue. This man's name is Drake Younger. And some of the people he's performed with, deathmatch style and professional wrestling in its entirety, are pretty mind-boggling. We have him wrestling Adam Cole, AR Fox, Kevin Owens. Sorry, Kevin Stein is what I wanted to say, his original name. Jon Moxley, things like JC Bailey, Brain Damage, Neck Rope Butcher, Thumbtack Jack, Devin Moore, and someone who's heavy on everyone's hearts because he was such a great guy, Danny Havok. He's worked with WXW, PGW, IWA, XPA. He is no stranger to controversy, but he is a man of God. He's a man that goes out of his way to help others, and he has a heart for charity that we're going to talk about. So here to talk about his legendary career and some upcoming dates in New Jersey, October, people, I give you the Psycho Shooter, Drake Younger. Sir, how are you doing?
Man, that was an incredible introduction. Wow. Thank you so much, man. I'm grateful to be here and humbled by the kind words. And, you know, I haven't thought about the Best of the Best tournament from 2014. I haven't thought about that in a long time. And what a, what a, I mean, I dare say like magical night that was. That was one of my favorite evenings that I've ever had in this business or just in life in general. Such good vibes. And as you said, I had the opportunity to wrestle 3 matches that night. Yeah, dude, and that was my last, CZW show. So what a way to go out.
So you know that I have had a little time with CZW. I trained a little bit. It was a very small time in my life, but the opportunities they afforded me was so grand. The things I was able to do, learn a little psychology, do a little bit of wrestling and reffing. And when I look back on that match, my favorite match of the night was you versus AR Fox. That was it. But being able to go back and know specific things now, not be able to say like everything, every little detail, but to see like, oh my God, I would have never noticed that. You know, I was wondering if you could go back and try and give me what the vibe was for the backstage that night. If you remembered setting it up with AR, is he somebody that likes to go off, like, hey, off the cuff?
No. We have AR Fox, man. It's like precision. First of all, I was just, I had known him for a while. He came into CZW in 2010. Him and Jonathan Gresham, A couple other the Georgia Cats, Unbreakable Andy, Aaron Arbo, I think their name was, a car full of Georgia dudes that, drove up to Philadelphia just for an opportunity, much like, when I got booked for Tournament of Death, as you mentioned, back in 2006, drove out to Delaware for an opportunity. That's, you gotta take advantage of what's in front of you and just make the most out of it. And so fast forward, getting to actually work with him in New Jersey in my last night at CZW, it was an honor for me. And second round matches a lot of times that you've kind of forgotten about. So him and I definitely wanted to make it a point to just hammer it home, knock it out of the park as much as we could, and make it a very memorable second round match. And obviously I had taken pride in building a reputation as a hybrid wrestler and somebody that's very capable at it. And I had mastered the deathmatch stuff at that point, and so I was really, really making it accentuation to represent deathmatch guys, but to show that hey, when you apply yourself, you're in the gym, you're treating this like like what it should be. That you can do anything in this business. And so I was rocking the trunks and got all cut up and leaned up and everything. And so we just we wanted to go out there and just drop bombs, man, and we did, and it was fun. Still one of my best buddies to this day. Yeah.
And I can't stress how important CZW and you are to each other. The synonymousness, you repped that brand for years. And when I think about moments in your career, it always goes back to a CZW moment. I always think when it comes to the deathmatch style, best of the best versus TOD6. You won Tournament of Death, and then you did it on the professional level without the weaponry. Are those two probably the highest highlights as far as being recognized as the best in your field, or is there other matches, or when you get the title, you are the one the company's saying you're established, carry us? Is there particular moments for both styles that you hold high?
100%, yeah. And with those, specifically, you're talking best of the best in Tournament of Death. They definitely hold weight and they definitely hold value whenever you're having that goat hybrid wrestler conversation, right? You know what I mean? And look, there can be many goats. Like a goat never travels by itself too much. So, but be that as it may, also, at the same time, I had the opportunity to have those accolades, but also the Ted Petty Invitational from IWA Mid-South and King of the Death matches from IWA Mid-South as well. So you think for my generation and for a huge chunk of independent wrestling history, when it comes to technical wrestling and ultra-violent deathmatch hardcore wrestling, I mean, those are the four tournaments that everybody that everybody puts there. And, my name has been on the winner. I'm the only person in history to have win all four of those. So that definitely, the companies had confidence in me. The fans were behind me. And most importantly for me, the locker room believed in me as well. Believed in me to be one of the lead dogs in the race. And to take that responsibility. And you talked about that synonymous relationship with CZW. And there was a time where all I was doing was just traveling the states and traveling around the world. And I would, proudly wear my CZW jacket, and I was, CZW champion for a year and a half or so, and would take the title with me, and not only me, but a huge crew of guys. Whenever we traveled, we were like, that CZW crew was tight. We were very, very tight, and yeah, it was a tremendous honor, and we will, myself and CZW will always be synonymous with each other.
And one of the funnest things as a fan was not too long after you left WWE, you are wrestling, you go to the tryout, you're one of the first recruits there, but then William Regal comes and says, hey, you know what, we really do need referees, and you have to have a certain talent for that too. I'll never forget, I screwed up a match so badly because I was thrown into it. I didn't know any better, but this was one of the greatest matches I've ever seen live. It's one of the greatest spectacles I've ever been a part of. but I didn't know the psychology behind counting for a false finish.
Sure.
And I killed the crowd over and over again. And they had to pull me aside and say, hey, Jon, why did you do that? And I was like, no one told me. So to see you on the grand stage with Kurt Angle, Triple H, Stephanie, Ronda Rousey counting, it was like, you know what? We were making jokes too. It's like, well, you know, it's probably only Drake could do that. He's the only one there that can handle this.
That's awesome, man.
There's a lot of sacrifice that doesn't get talked about. Could you please relay to us what was happening prior to the tryout? Because there's this beautiful story where, you know, you're working 25 to 40 hours a week. You're traveling internationally, and you're traveling 13 hours, 20 hours by car to get to these gigs. And you come home, you know, you're going to go to the tryout. You have this opportunity to be on Raw, SmackDown, and your wife brought you a brand new suit. Could you tell us where you were mentally at that point?
Wow, man. You know that story? That's awesome, bro. Dang. Yeah, so that time period, it was incredible. So, you know, 2013, I really was like going all in on pro wrestling. You know what I mean? It was, you know, I moved my family to California at the time where my wife was originally from. I had a wife and a young daughter at the time. So we moved to California, like kind of, I looked at it as like the old school, like, hey, we're going to take the family and go to move to a new territory. You know what I mean? Type thing. And, got an opportunity at PWG. You know, I remember, you know, sending in a message and was like, hey, like, you know, I'll get myself down. I was in Sacramento. I was like, I just moved here like yesterday. I was like, I'll get down there to LA somehow, you know, if there's an opportunity. And so that happened. I had the match with B-Boy in Los Angeles, and that really, you know, that broke everything out. That time period, 2012 to 2014, where I was in Northern California living, that was the greatest 2 years I had on the independents, my last 2 years. I mean, I was wrestling 4 nights a week, you know, training guys as well. You know, still traveling internationally. You know, there was a time period there where I was in Japan for 6 weeks, you know, and using the old school calling cards to call home and, you know, talk to my new daughter and all that, you know what I mean? And then like sending Japanese yen like inside of a magazine and mailing it back to my wife, like, hey, I don't know, take this to the bank, see what they'll do with it. I don't know, you know, just like stuff like that, and just grinding and then like doing, you know, extra jobs and stuff. And dude, I'll never forget, like, one night you know, I'd come home I had like a triple shot weekend. I'd wrestled in like Stockton or Modesto or something. Came home, you know, had some family time, and I worked overnight at this hotel near Sacramento, right? And it was like 11 p.m., 7 a.m. or whatever. And then I like get off and drive home. Well, I was like starting to feel tired, man, and was kind of nodding off a little bit, but I was like a mile away from home. And so I was like, oh, you know, I'll make it. And then sure enough, dude, I fell asleep. And next thing I know, I totaled my car, like it hit this light pole, flipped over, like all this stuff. And I came out unscathed, dude, like somehow, some way. And then that, like literally the next week, we found out my wife was pregnant with my son. Yeah, and so we got another one on the way. Like I just avoided death. And was like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of running so hard here and grinding so much. It's like, but something's going to pay off. It's going to happen. You know what I mean? Like it's going to happen. And I got the opportunity to be an extra talent for WWE. I'd never done anything with WWE before. Never tried, or never even really thought it was a possibility. At that point, Moxley had been up there for a couple of years. And so, you know, I just asked him, like, who do I contact just to be an extra? You know what I mean? Like, didn't say, hey, bro, can you give me a job? Or, hey, this, that, because that's not the case. That didn't happen. You know, it was just like, hey, point me in the right direction of who I should contact. And so, you know, he gave me the talent development director's name and an email. And so I sent in an email and a couple of pictures. And next thing you know, I get a phone call from a 203 phone number. And it's like, hey, Drake, this is such and such with WWE. We'd like for you to be an extra talent. It's going to be in Sacramento and San Jose on August such and such. Show up at this time, wear a suit, no pictures backstage. We'll see you there. It was just like that. And I was like, oh, yes, ma'am. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. And I hung up. I was like, bang, bang, yo, I'm going to Bang. I really need to be an extra. You know what I mean? I was just like so pumped up. And so, you know, I just had like some some raggedy kind of like old school dress clothes. And, you know, again, I was working so much at the time, but I guess my wife had put away some money, right? And I remember I came home one day and she had this awesome 3-piece suit, dude, like custom to like my size and everything. Like it was just like, oh, dude, it was amazing. And I was like, babe, how'd you get this? We can't afford this. And she just, I'll never forget, man. She told me, she said, dress for the job that you want, not the job you have. She said, you're going to go there on Monday. You're going to go there on Tuesday. And she said, and you're going to make an impression. And she goes, everybody knows your ability, but now you're gonna show them that you belong on their level. When you walk back there backstage, she said, you belong back there. That she said, I remember, never forget this. She is it okay to cuss on here?
Yeah, go ahead, man. We riff, we say everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'll never forget. She gave me a kiss. She said, "Don't forget, you're Drake motherfucking Young. You got this." I was like, "What?" Yeah, and you know, fast forward, everything went great when I was an extra talent. Did this segment with Ryback, you know, got a tryout, and then you know that's when Regal pulled me to the side to have that conversation about, hey, would you be willing to, you know, step out of the spotlight and be in the background and be in a supporting role as a referee and as a little bit of a player coach type role, and I was all about it. Dude, I didn't have to think about it. It wasn't like, oh, you know, oh, but I still want to do this. Oh, what if I like totally cool with putting wrestling to oh wait, like I love the business as a whole. And I can tell you I fell in love with the art of refereeing. I love it. It's, you know, not only that, I got to learn how to be you know, time live television, be back, you know, do backstage producing, you know, payroll, medical work, booking extra talent, like all this stuff that I got to do just because I was willing and open to be able to, you know, put my ego to the side and put that to the background to, you know, be a positive contribution in any way that I could. So, dude, I would have been the janitor if they would have asked me to. You know what I mean? Like, give me a salary and I don't got to bleed anymore. Cool.
I just don't think people realize how incredibly stressful that point to get to there is. You know,
it's a grind, bro, especially when you got a family.
I liked how you put it. In the wrestling business, you do have to be selfish, but most of the time you hear that it's more so the bookings. It's like the show. It's like, should I drop? Should I not drop? But you put it in the light for, no, this is selfish on our families, like rock stars. You know, we're not home. They have to pick up the slack that we're not there to help them with. So, you know, I was very curious because, rest in peace, Jimmy Rave. I love the psychology of professional wrestling. I did a mock match and DJ tore me to shreds. Me and my friend, we were so proud of even like coming up with certain ideas of like, oh, maybe the crowd would think this and that, and then he was just he knocked it down. And you know, in that level, you have to learn. So we took it very graciously, but it was so eye-opening. And Jimmy Rave was a big part before he passed on some of the times he spoke with me and opening my eyes up to what was happening as a referee. What were some of those lessons, or at least the most eye-opening lesson you learned from WWE?
The biggest thing, just for the role of referee, like in ring, on camera, you know, you're like a law enforcement official in there. You know, you're going to keep the law and order. You know, and from, let's say, a psychology perspective, right? And you'll see sometimes on the indies, like wrestlers will like brush the referee aside, like put their hands on him and stuff, right? Like that should not fly. Like, and here's the reason. Here's the rhyme and reason for that. So, let's say I'm refereeing Damian Priest versus oh gosh, let's say Damian Priest. Who would he have wrestled by versus Keith Lee, right? Let's say I'm roughing them in NXT. So Keith Lee at any point, if he wanted to, because of his size, could just bogard me to the side, right, and just jump Damian Priest and get his hands on it, right? But why doesn't he do that, right? Because I'm the official, and if this is real, you know, if the psychology is there, the winner gets more money, right? And so if he puts his hands on me, or if he doesn't obey my 5 count, or if he doesn't obey my 10 count, or whatever that may be, that's going to cost that wrestler a living. So the wrestler could be frustrated, they could be upset. that's why referee bumps shouldn't be so often. They shouldn't happen so much because it should be a big deal when a wrestler loses or cool or an incidental moment or something of the sort like that. But just that whole psychology perspective of being like, hey, you're the law and order there. And just that and how the wrestlers should look at that as well.
I think the biggest responsibility that bothers me, and you ran into this, and it actually gave you a pat on the back, is when something goes wrong and you have to make the call. They don't obey the 5 count. Somebody is hurt, and you gotta hit 3. I've had a couple of close calls. I think I've maybe ref 3 times officially, like on camera, and I had one where it had to come down. It was a very like nerve-wracking moment. I am curious for that one with Becky Lynch, and when you had to count, and Vince, everybody gave you a good job. Did you get a bonus for that?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I got a little extra $5. Yeah, for sure.
Back to psychology, because the bread and butter for us is the actual art of being in the ring. You got to wrestle Daniel Bryant, American Dragon. I will never forget. I was backstage at AEW in New Jersey, and the awe and respect that man had walking out. And we're talking Hall of Famers, doesn't matter, WWE, different promotions, people that have done amazing things outside of the wrestling industry, but everybody had that respect for him walking through and his style. Could you relate to us what it was like working with him and how you felt gelling with him? What was it about Adam Cole that was a little smoother than working with the American Dragon? I'm curious between those two.
Yeah, no, so Bryan was a wrestling machine. It was just, I remember being in the ring with him. I was, somewhat intimidated, right? Because, I was like a hardcore guy, right? And he's the best wrestler in the world. But we had been on shows together, so he knew that I could actually wrestle as well. And I had a good rapport with him and everything. So Bryan, it just seemed moving around with him and touching him, it just felt like it was so effortless for him. And everything he did was just with such precision, but it doesn't like knock your block off to where you can't think the next day. You know what I mean? He has that fine line down like a science, and just how he commands respect, but he's also incredibly humble at the same time. That's something that's very admirable for me to Bryan. Um, and again, just how effortless it is for him. It's so easy for him just to go through and just have this banger of a match. Where a lot of us, we have to like sit down, we have to put a lot of thought into it. We got to, we got to go above and beyond. We got to dig down. We got to find ourselves. All this stuff that we got to go through. He just, bam, he walks in the arena, and he's ready to go. Yeah, you know what I mean, ready to put on a classic. With Adam Cole, I think the atmosphere was just different that night. Being in PWG in Los Angeles, and I was legitimately in the hospital the day before, and he was sick, and so we had so many more obstacles to climb, and so much more of the deck stacked against us, that the match that we had, we were so proud of because of that. We really felt like true pros.
Man. I don't know how to phrase this correctly, but it is something that has been on my heart. So we're both men of faith, and for this industry, it attracts what I think is some of the most intelligent, kind-hearted people that can't find their way in society. It also attracts the very crazy and broken, but there was a moment when I was in school where I felt like a lot of this was an understanding of I may not have a lot of time on this earth, and this is why I would be good at this profession. I was wondering if you ever had to come to grips with that prior to. Was it always just, no, I just want to do it because I love it and figure it out later, young and dumb? Or was it kind of like that time where you had your last back injury and, your family's there and you had to really question it? Because a big thing that I was concerned with, I don't know how to really tell people that, yes, even if it's just regular professional wrestling, not even, deathmatch style, that even though we're doing this to our bodies and to somebody else, there is a art to this. There's a God-given talent that we are justified in doing because he gave us this ability.
Yes and no. That's a loaded question, but the best way I can say it, and it's not going to sound great or profound or anything like that. wrestling's the only thing that hasn't left me. It's always been there. And it's the greatest, one of the greatest gifts that I've been blessed with. But also, like, man, I haven't made the best decisions personally, family wise. Like, there's been, again, many times where I put the business above my family. And, um, you know, sometimes on these interviews, I get asked what advice I would give to the next generation. And, a lot of times it's, a fairly typical answer, like, hey, listen to the veterans, ears open, mouth shut, this, that, and the other. Take advantage of every opportunity. And yes, that's all great, true. But dude, for me, like, breaking into the business, like, the guys I was around and everything, like, they like glorified being unfaithful, right? And that made an impression on me. And I told myself, oh, I'd never be that. But this business, man, it's yeah. My advice I could say to anybody is don't put this above your family. Um, don't either that or pick which life you want. I've tried to live, you know, tried to balance both lives and haven't navigated it so well. Um, but that's what I would say to the next generation. If you get a wife um, that is sacrificed for you to be able to do this, to treat her like rubies, to treat her like gold, and know when it's time to step away. I don't know when it is time, to be honest.
But that's all of us.
I mean, sorry to get real there. Dude,
no, no, you're good. Because it might get a little bit more real after this. Trust me. It's
Sorry to interrupt, but also to your point, what I'm grateful for and is that with wrestling, with this gift that I have, and with this reach that we have, through the media and everything, what I love so much though is when I'm at a show or a signing and I see somebody come up and they're like, "Hey, dude, like I was going through some terrible stuff, and you put yourself out there, and just like you entertaining us through wrestling, help me get through it." Or, "Hey, me and my dad, we would go and watch CZW on second Saturday every month. That was our tradition. We watched your guys' matches together." Or I have some indie rock band. I was like, "Dude, we used to watch CZW in the back of the bus, and you guys help us a lot with it." Just like stuff like that. How what I do for a living in front of the camera can make an impact on somebody, and not like a superficial impact, like serious impact on their life. That's really cool.
and we get a lot of trash because, especially when you started, the reason you're so innovative because you are part of the elite that did this deathmatch wrestling as well. When there was almost nobody there, you guys would kill yourselves with 4 or 5 people, and then the rest of it was at the time the DVD market, which you cashed out on. Something I love but still bothers me is the bloodlust the fans have. My first tournament of death was a crazy night prior to. It was my first hangover day. I'm dying. I'm seeing all my favorites. I'm seeing Danny. I'm seeing Shlak, who I got a story about too. But the two things I noticed now is I am curious to how the psychology of deathmatch wrestling changes from regular wrestling. You did a couple of matches recently, and one was with Big F and Joe, and the finish made sense to me. You basically incapacitated him. But then there was another match where you had it with a guy, and he didn't sell your finisher. And I'm kind of like, I was confused because afterwards you beat the crap out of him with all the stuff. Then it made sense. I'm like, okay, you're going to get put down. But I didn't know how it was going about. And Danny Havok was so good at mapping it out step by step. So when you do introduce the weapons, how does the story change for that particular style of wrestling?
You got to liken it to kind of like the samurai warrior type style. You know what I mean? You're doing battle with weapons. You know what I mean? And so for me, I always try to remember the marquee on the name is wrestling. It's pro wrestling, right? So rather than just, hey, grabbing weapons and we're going to swing for the fences and just hit each other with stuff. We're going to attempt this maneuver. It's going to get countered. And then, I'll do a standing switch, and then maybe we'll end up doing a hurricane rana and back down. And then, later up, bam, Death Valley driver in the light tubes out of nowhere. Just kind of, I like to take people on a ride. You know what I mean? Look, everybody knows that it's predetermined, right? Everybody knows that aspect, but also everybody knows now. I would like to think that death matches are real. Like we're really getting cut. It burns, it stings, and you see our backs afterwards and everything like that. So there's no questioning that. And so for me, I'm at the mindset now, and again, I've said this before, like I'm so calm and comfortable inside the deathmatch environment now, as long as it's set up correctly. But I'm so calm and comfortable in there, and for me, dude, talk about psychology. You can talk about all that. Nowadays, when I'm out there, I just want to take the fans for a ride. I want them to have a damn good time. I want them to enjoy themselves. I want to enjoy myself. And I want to make memories with the person that I'm working with, and form that bond. There's a bond as well. Once you tear a house down with somebody in a 200 light tubes death match, you kind of forced to bond with each other for the rest of your life after that. But be that as it may, I just want to take people for a ride, dude. And so I want my matches to be almost like a party. You know what I mean? I don't want nobody looking down at their phones or anything like that. People are standing up, they're cheering, they're going nuts. That's what I want out of my matches.
You know what? One of the greatest things I ever saw you do that still haunts me to this day, it wasn't taking anything with a weapon. It was after the fact where you guys started chain wrestling on the mat with nothing but glass, rolling between pins. And I'm like, you know what? I could give, you know what? Forget it. God bless you. I bow down to your toughness, because, man, I've been hit a couple of times in my life where it really made me think about my situation, and one of them was in wrestling, where Aaron Ash hit me safely. It did not hurt me, took care of me, but he hit me and I hit the ground. I was like, huh.
You still feel it? Oh, yeah.
I remember it clearly. So, when you get into deathmatch wrestling, your first match was something that no matter who I show it to, they're going to stand up and applaud it. It was so heartfelt, because you could see these guys are really suffering for us. What was the warnings prior to the death match, and what was your first thought when you actually took your first, it wasn't a bump, but maybe it could be, but regardless, you took your first hit of pain with a weapon.
I didn't have no warnings or anything like that. It was just like, I was just hungry, dude, and I wanted to take it to the next level. And that was my opportunity. So nobody gave me any warnings. Nobody gave me, this is how I watched and I studied, and again, I was hungry, and the guys that I was working with, they were hungry as well. When the first bump happened, everyone went through, and the reaction, and and then just kind of like the thrill of like blood, and like seeing like the fans' reaction when blood happens, right? Dude, I was like, oh, this is freaking awesome. Like this is, I mean, there's no other way I could say it, dude. I was like, this is freaking awesome. And that took me around the world.
And you're still doing it, man. Some of the bumps, I'm like, yo, Circle 6. Why did we do that? Yeah. Why did we do that? What was your favorite moment, deathmatch or regular style, where you had to make a off-the-cuff decision and it paid off tremendously for you both?
When Bryan Danielson called for me to win in my hometown over him. I mean, he did that split second off the cuff. He called for me. He's like, hey, can you do a moonsault? I was like, yeah, I think so. So he's like, okay, you do moonsault. So I did a moonsault, and then he's like, finish. I was like, oh, what? 1, 2, 3. I was like, oh shit, but he just had the presence of mind to know that that's what needed to be done at that time.
You've spoken about a lot of people taking care of you. JC Bailey in the deathmatch, Mike Shinoda in reffing. Who have you been able to take care of too? Who's been somebody that you've been able to mentor?
Yeah, dude, at the Performance Center, anytime there was a new class or anything like that, I would generally try to make them feel welcome, show them the lay of the land, stuff like that. If there was international people, their first couple road loops, I would I let them ride, hey, ride in my car. I'll take care of gas, buy them a meal, whatever like that. Just stuff like that. Dude, I don't have like a particular mentee or anything like that. It's just how I am. It's just how I was brought up. And I want, if I see somebody that at least appreciates this business and dude, I'll do whatever I can to help them. I really will.
I love that. We do have to talk about the WWE time, your favorite time, wrestling Ciampa, not wrestling Ciampa, you were referencing Ciampa and Brooklyn Takeover. They were going at it as the tag team, with being able to ref at WrestleManias, with being able to ref at these highly energy charged events. Could you explain to me the same and difference in that performance? Because we love this. You get the bug if there's nobody there. You still love doing this. But for you, how did you walk away with that energy, and how long does it stick? How does that adrenaline hit differently for you?
As a referee, yeah. So, dude, you get the best seat in the house, right? You've seen these amazing, incredible performance, and you're a part of it as well. And for me, I feel like the conductor, like in a musical, whenever I'm a referee. I look at like the commentators, they lay the tracks, the wrestlers, they make the music, of course. The producers, obviously, they're producing the music. The director, he's making sure everything flow times well. And then I'm the conductor. I'm just bringing the crowd along. Hey, this is the time. 1, 2. Just stuff like that. It's really really cool. It's an adrenaline like when the talent that you're working with is like when you're invested and involved in the creation of that match, the production of that match, and then all three of you or all five of you, make it come to life, and it just, dude, it's a really really cool feeling. Especially some of those takeovers and some of those WrestleManias, it would be weeks of working on the particular match or segment. You know what I mean? Like long hours into the wee hours of the morning sometimes. And so, it's just kind of like seeing the fruits of your labor pay off, and doing it in a way to where it's a television production, where that story is told and the WWE machine is pumping it to just the absolute best hype that it possibly can. It's awesome feeling, man.
You have talked so highly of Mike Shinoda, man. We got to talk Mike.
Yeah.
I hear stories from people that I'm like, how do you even have a connection to this man? You're not in the wrestling business. Where you? Oh yeah, he was at the bar one time in Philly, man, and he came in and bought us all. Yeah. I'm like, that. I don't know him, so I don't know if that sounds like him. But from what I've heard, it might be. So, what was your first interaction with him like? Because he's been a huge part in helping you after the fact and still being there for you.
So Chioda, again, he's the greatest of all time as far as referees in my eyes, and like he's the true definition of like a soldier. Like he's like he was a soldier for the WWE, man. Like when they were in the mid-90s, when they were doing shows at high school gymnasiums and stuff, and he was building the ring in the middle of Times Square for the WrestleMania kickoff and all that stuff like that. Like, dude, he's been in the trenches, man, like in the trenches. And so for all that he's done and for all the huge matches that he's officiated and been assigned, dude, like for me, it was just so awesome to meet him. He's like the most like cool looking, laid back dude, fun loving guy. Like, tan, wears the cool jewelry, for dresses nice, and just but like everybody respects him. You know what I mean? From the boys to the office, everybody has Chioda story. You know what I mean? And just the way that he had an injury and he was coming to the performance center, and on his own time, he did classes and lessons for us referees there. And for me, that was just awesome of him to do. I mean, like to the point he would watch our individual matches, break stuff down. We'd be there, for hours. He doesn't have to do this. He's like not being paid to do this. He's just there to get his shoulder better. But he loves us so much that he took the time to do that. And I'll always be appreciative of him. And after I left WWE, he got me some work in Puerto Rico, got me some money and stuff, and just really looked after me. Kind of just did everything for me when in regards to that you know business business situation. Like, uh, yeah, I'll always have love for my Chioda, man.
And again, to have friends that are so there for you. Like I just saw your interview with Renee, and I'll tell you what, he loves you, man. Because when I talked to him, it took a minute to get him to crack a smile. Like I know I don't know him, so he's not gonna open up. But he's like he's very straightforward. Like he don't play.
Yeah.
So for you to have stories that's like, yeah, man, he just paid for us. He took us on a night on the town. I'm like, damn, you got a good spirit. Because I got one smile, and I was thankful as hell. He was there.
Exactly. Dude, it's just one instance, but I'm unfortunate. Like I've kind of, it's almost like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Like I've been involved with like almost everybody in wrestling that's somebody, you know what I mean? In one way or another, just because I've been around so long and traveled so much. And, like I'm in with the deathmatch crowd. I'm in with the regular wrestling crowd, the WWE crowd, the PWG crowd, the Japan guys, all that. Like I've been around, man, and like I've been fortunate enough to build a good reputation, be somebody that's respected and somebody that people like enjoy having around, and that means a lot to me to have that respect from your peers. It's a huge honor, it really.
Speaking of respect, they, especially during our generation, we were told not to meet our heroes. And I've been incredibly fortunate. I have never met a hero of mine that was rude, humble, very kind with the time. That was the biggest thing to me. Kind with the time. You love Sabu. Sabu is your favorite wrestler. And then watching your body of work and going back to his, I would say you may have surpassed him by a long shot. But it's evident, I can see where the influence came from and the love for it. Were you ever able to meet with him and have intimate time?
Yeah, we wrestled, dude. It was amazing. It was like, yeah, it'd be like a upcoming rock and roll singer getting to sing with Axl Rose. Like that's what it was to me. 2010, we wrestled IWA Mid-South. He was still very healthy at the time, and we had a great match, dude. He seemed to like me enough to let me do some stuff, which was super cool. And then we wrestled in 2013 in California as well, and it was fantastic, man. Both times are amazing, and yeah, dude, that's who I pattern my wrestling life after.
And you got the scars to match. I, only because of the thought of Sabu. You both are pretty scarred up, and scars. Yeah. Chicks take the scars,
Yeah, they do, man. But it helps me, helps me stand out and everything. And the scars again. I think I've said it in a promo before, but like it's real, it's true life. Like the scars on my body, they tell a story of a man who was never allowed to be a boy in this business. Like I had to like just come right in and just grow right up and just be hang with the big dogs. Whether it was my size or my age or whatever, being younger in the business, like I really had to step up quick and just be in some pretty tense and high pressure situations, and these scars are a reminder of that.
And really tense because you almost lost an ear. The scar, the gash you had when you almost lost your nipple, from a medical standpoint it's terrible, but it's beautiful to see how the human body actually is and works. And I was like, if I had my needle, I could sew that up real quick. The only injury I heard that came across weird in interviews was with Thumbtack Jack in the notorious underground saw match where the blade hit your back, and you said it just felt weird. As opposed to glass from light tubes in your back, as opposed to barbed wire and all these crazy things. What is it about the razor cutting? Is it kind of like a paper cut, and it's totally different?
I felt like I got stabbed a little bit, dude. It was just not a good feeling at all. Like I was just, I'm glad I never want to do this again.
Again, it was something that it was so innovative and ahead of its time. Were you apprehensive?
No, that was my first time leaving the country. And Thumbtack Jack had the whole thing laid out. He had the whole premise of it, the whole idea of it. He was really great at, marketing that kind of stuff as well. And so I was like, gosh, if this guy is willing to do this, and this company is, flying at the time. Again, dude, I'm a 22-year-old kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody's paying for me to go to Germany? Yeah, of course, yeah. I was like, well, I'll do whatever. Um, yeah, and I had no idea that the match would um, have such a cult following. I dare say, you know what I mean? Where that would the legend of the match would grow throughout the years. Um, but there's been some good, some like, those videos on YouTube where people like, oh, person reacts to watching this the first time. The person reacts to listening to this song the first time. Like, I think they did one of that with the Saul Death match. So I'll have to check it out sometime.
It's interesting to me because at the time when you guys did it, a lot of the deathmatch crew, like people that were doing it full time, were like, "You guys killed the business. This is too extreme. This is ridiculous." And it's like a ever evolving thing in wrestling where the older generation will say, "What are you doing? This isn't what it is. It's not. It's just the next step." So that's why I think it's so important to recognize how important you guys were, because that body of work stands the test of time of what they were doing in Japan at the time, and at the Anita working with his crew and whatnot. So it's always cool to look back. If there is a body of work, deathmatch, and is there a word for regular? We just call it a match. I don't know what they call regular matches. But is there a body of work that kind of is your, I want to say your Hell in a Cell moment, that even though it might not be your favorite, or maybe it is your favorite, that has been the test of time? That's the number one go-to your fans, that the community has always stated, if you want to see a match by Drake, you watch this.
I think a lot of people say the Barefoot Thumbtacks match was JC Bailey. I mean, I really do, because that was lightning in a bottle. It's like you're never going to have that again. For the situation, the time, the talent, I think that's one of them. Yeah, that's got to be the one. And a lot of people, they talk about the when I won Tournament of Death and lost my nipple and all that. So I never watched that back. I don't even want to watch that, but like people, they call that as well. So yeah,
it's pretty bad. I would shudder if it was me. I like yikes.
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's the B-boy match at PWG. There's you know the match with Adam Cole at PWG. There's gosh, me and Claudio at TPI, IWA Mid-South. I mean, there's quite a few. You know what I mean? But I would say the Barefoot Thumbtacks is probably the one that gets brought up the most.
So when it comes to remembering some of the greats, got to talk Danny Havok. That was one of your best friends, and he had such an impact on not just the community, but people loved him as a person, loved his story. And I wanted to know some of the best moments you had with him, seeing him actually make it.
He was just amazing in the ring and out of the ring. Um, I think my favorite moments with him were just touring Japan together. There was a couple tours where it was just him and I, and so literally we're just again two guys from the Midwest in this foreign land, traveling this tour bus. Like when not too long prior to that, him and I were like sitting in his apartment watching these matches, like hoping to someday be a part of it. Now like we're in it. We are the show. We're here. And just riding on the tour bus with him and just having those kind of cool moments, or when we would second each other out in the ring, and just eh, just that brotherhood, that camaraderie. Uh, I'll never forget, like we sat down in the lobby one time and signed our little BJW contracts and all that. Just dude, he was just a genuine soul, man. Genuine soul.
What are your goals now? You really have done it all as far as what you wanted in professional wrestling, but like you said earlier, knowing when to quit and not to quit. I'm a firm believer. Some of us are destined. We have an inherent need. It's an actual calling. Whether you want to say God, the universe, whatever, we have a need to do what we do best, and we can't give it up fully. We'll know when our time is up at the top, but it's something that we always have to do. What is your goals now? Is it just to be the next usher of the new generation? Is it to get back to the top of deathmatch wrestling and any promotion you're at? What is your mindset?
Dude, I've accomplished every goal that I've set forth in wrestling. Um, at this point in the game, I want to just cement my legacy. Um, I want to give back to this generation and teach them what I was so blessed to learn for the 8 years that I was at WWE, and then I want to I have no really other goals in wrestling other than that. At this point, I just want to get my family back.
The best piece of advice is something I always ask at the end. Sometimes it's hilarious, sometimes it's crazy. Like, I talked to Doyle Von Wolfgang of the Misfits, and he said something along the lines is the fucking you're giving worth the fucking you're getting. And then I talked to Ryan of another band, and he was like, never buy the tour bus, rent one. Oh my God, bro. Sometimes it's simple as just live. Ted Aguilar told me that, and that was such a trying time in this time of trying to do radio, and I think I was at CZW at the time too, but basically he was like, do what you can, enjoy the ride. What's something somebody's told you? Either it was like a pass by, like, hey man, don't forget to fuck yourself, or was it something serious of like, hey Drake, can I take you to the side and talk to you real quick, bro? That every now and again, it just, in the back of your mind, you remember it's kind of like a guiding light during the days.
Man, not that like sticks out to me, but I can tell you what. So I'm getting ready to turn 40, and if I could talk to my 20-year-old self, that was starting to break out in independent wrestling and was, just hungry and wanted to travel the world and just wanted to be inside of a ring, be in front of fans. I would tell my 20-year-old self, and I would tell anybody that's in the business to live for tomorrow and not always necessarily live for the moment. Living for the moment's great in a lot of ways, but it can also impact you in the long run in a negative way. So I would just start thinking about and living for tomorrow as
well. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Drake Younger, one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. I say, Drake, thank you so much. And people, don't forget to go check him out on October 11th. He's going up against the Bulldozer Matt Tremont. He's going to lay the smackdown on him. And you're going to get a beautiful show, no matter what type of wrestling you like. Sir, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, John. Take care, guys. God bless.
And everybody else, be smart, be mindful. I would say get your barbed wire bats and your light tubes and rock on. Ninja out.
Woo, baby, you listen to Jon the Ninja. Oh, your ears are about to go on a vacation. Jon the Ninja's got what you need.